Don't look at what's in front of you. Boost, 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 boost. Moving up and down again.
To Inform Nostalgia, we again have a name change, and well, we are into our second episode of season 2, and with me is Sam Levy.
Hey everybody.
Well, we have an interesting topic, or I find interesting topic today. We are going to be talking about movie propaganda and what is it, what some examples of it, and some examples of it done well, some examples of it done not so well. To get into what movie propaganda is film content that is created or shaped with an intention of influencing an audience's beliefs, emotions, behavior, or support a specific ideology. It can have political agenda or social viewpoint. It doesn't have to be obvious. It's not always bad. It could be subtle, it could be overt, it could be emotional. Um, I was always been interested in like propaganda out in the world, and especially in the times that we have now. Um, but I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to talk about that. Not all propaganda is bad. It is used to shape, inform people. It's just kind of if we put out content that has a certain agenda to try to either win people over or to sway public opinion. So,
Yeah.
what is your take on it?
Well, there's more than one type. You know, they can also come in the form of books and music too. But I think in film and TV, it's especially effective because it's a visual medium and we are visual creatures. So it is easier to absorb information this way. And I think that most of us are generally speaking of the age where we grew up watching a lot of more movies and TV than our parents did, because they were mostly watching, or I would say they were reading more books than we were and listening to more music than we were. Not to say that we didn't do either of those. I certainly read a lot of books and listened to a lot of music growing up, but at a certain point, movies just became more palatable in the sense they were they were marketed better. They became more special effects oriented and action blasting, and just a way to like capture our attention. It's like a quicker fix. It's like more instant gratification than the more lasting and deeper pleasures of a really intricate, rich novel would be. So it's because it grabs your attention faster. It's easier to fall into the like, hey, let's go watch something, and it's an easier way to kind of absorb and perhaps get influenced by whatever political message that a filmmaker wants to impart to the people watching his movies. So, or her movies. So, or their movies. So, there's a lot of different genres. Obviously, you and I both love horror movies. I think a good place to start would be in the horror genre. Now, it's interesting because horror movies, I would say more than anything else, have a history of probably using their format and their genre to make social commentary, because they could get away with it a lot more too, because unlike a lot of other genres which are taken a lot more seriously, horror is usually frowned upon. It's viewed as trash or ugly or unpleasant or, quite frankly, potentially sinister in its intentions. And so because of that, it's frequently not taken seriously by much of the culture, if not outright shunned, or told people asking people, like they want us to discover, they blah blah blah. Horror is a genre that people frequently discourage us from watching because they're afraid that it might influence us in bad ways. So I would actually like to take take a moment of time to actually talk about some examples of what certain movies, classic in the genre, could be used as a kind of social commentary. So I'll give credit where credit is due. This is from a little chat GPT thing that you did and that you pulled up. So, but I appreciate the outline because it's going to help us narrow through this. I'll just go through this and Can we start over?
Yeah, let's see. So for 5 minutes, I'll start over.
No, it's all right. I mean, you can edit it out later.
Yeah.
Just me stammering over myself. They don't need to see that. But no, here are some really, really great examples of classic horror films that are used as social commentary and or propaganda. So, the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the first one came out in 1956, but there have been several remakes. And when it came out, the country was in the height of the Red Scare and fear of communism, and so the movie is frequently taken to be an allegory of invasion by communists and the fear of our country and our way of life being infected by communist regimes from other parts of the world that we were distinctly opposed to. That being said, the movie is also open-ended enough that you can also look at it as an allegory for conformity. So anyone who's different from you is perceived to be an enemy and therefore must be ratted out. There are multiple scenes in the movie of once the spoiler alert, the alien spores which are launched from outer space and into our atmosphere and start taking over the town. Once the people are essentially colonized by these alien spores and turn into emotionless replicas of their former selves, they start pointing out anyone who's still human. And so while the alien spores thing is definitely meant as an allegory for communism, or almost certainly, the idea that anybody who is different or thinks differently than the rest of the pack could also be used as an argument for, quite frankly, anyone being accused of being a communist. It could be, the people in this case. You could look at it as it's open-ended enough that the heroes are either rugged American individual capitalists who are fighting for their way of life, or they are people who are being accused of being communist because the whole McCarthyist hysteria had really negative, damaging effects on a lot of people's livelihoods, and it also ended up getting people killed. So the fear of the other is really, at the end of the day, what this movie's about. So, but you can use that to mean almost anything. Then there is a movie like The Thing, specifically the John Carpenter remake. I personally like the original much better, but it's meant to be another Cold War paranoia story about an alien, a malevolent alien life force here to conquer the planet and kill humans. The John Carpenter remake, has become the more popular version of the story. I personally really, really don't like it because it's more nasty gore than actual scares. So it's not really a movie that I revisit very often. I don't know if you've seen it. You have? Okay, if you enjoy it more, maybe that's something you would rather expound upon.
No, the thing is actually, like, what's funny is that I know that I chose this subject, but I don't care for a lot of the movies that we're gonna talk about. I don't know, but
Feel free to bring up any others. Feel free to bring up others that you do want to.
Like the ones that were suggested that are the most popular propaganda. I did enjoy Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I like the remake from the 70s. Was it from the 70s? Yeah. I do, like, kind of what you were talking about. I do like, I mean, I guess the propaganda works. Like, if you're going to do the Red Scare and, like, with communism and, like, the hive mind kind of thing where there's no individualism and all that. I think that's a good way to poison people's minds, I guess, about communism. Not that I'm all for communism or anything, but if we just focus on the individual, right, then everything's individual, nothing's together. You don't work together. You don't do. So it's a good way to keep things separate, and that's a good movie to be like, no, I have to be me and all that. So blah blah blah. And then The Thing, I really feel like, in my opinion, like I don't have much of a, I guess, opinion on The Thing being propaganda, but I do know it is another case in from my point of view of a fear of the other, what's different, of being isolated with people, or something's invading you. So it does give that really feel of invasion. And I know during the time that's very important to like a feeling that they had. Like, there used to be drills, I guess, about people invading and like bomb scares and stuff in the schools. I remember my parents talking about the Red Scare when they were in school, or and stuff they had to prepare for. Um, Another movie, the whole slasher genre. I know that we'll move into that. Isn't like a kind of like Reaganomic, like a Reagan era, where if you did anything bad, you got killed, like drugs, sex, anything outside of the normal or the very clean cut version of America. When you got murdered, you had Friday the 13th. You have Halloween, and oddly enough, not Black Christmas, because I feel like well, some of them did die, but I mean, I feel like it was more of like the smarter you were, the better.
Mm.
With some exceptions, I know that they have the Margaret Kidder character who did everything bad and died.
And it was easily the best time in the movie, but
He was so impressed by the phone call.
it's
Um,
yeah.
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, it's interesting. For the most part, I know a lot of people take the slasher genre's view of anyone having sex or uh, drinking or doing drugs, or generally not acting like a conservative prep school kid, as an allegory for conservative values. But I find it so funny that the whole trope of this started with Halloween, and even John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, who wrote the movie, said they weren't actually out to make any political statement. And they were just trying to write a movie that they thought would make a lot of money, and the only reason that the other kids who are not Jamie Lee Curtis end up getting killed off is because they're too busy trying to get laid to notice that there's somebody out there. So if you want to look at it as, if you want to take any political meaning from that, I guess you're welcome to. But there was never any allegory intended in that movie. And as far as Friday the 13th goes, as fun as those movies are, they're so poorly made that anything that one could take from them is surely it's out of sheer luck or coincidence. There's really almost nothing going on there.
I agree with you with all of that, but I guess it's like it's a product of its time. Like, I mean, it may not be intentionally there, like when you're writing it, but it's there because we may have already bought that propaganda. Does
Sure.
that make sense? Like it's like reproducing it by accident, if that makes
Sure.
sense.
Oh, sure.
The eras that we're in. No, I don't think those movies were made with any kind of because they're in that boom craze. We're going through that time of this propaganda probably being pushed out, and it's just happened to be there. Because
Yeah.
there's such a craze to make those movies to make money.
Yeah.
So we just ended that. But I just think it's interesting because if you take it and you don't belong in that time anymore, you're like, why are they preaching this to us? Like,
Right.
you can see it like in all those movies that even though in the 90s we made a parody of it in
Yes.
Scream.
Of course.
These are the rules. These are all the rules from the 80s like slasher movies.
Mhm.
I just think it's interesting. I think it's interesting to look at these movies during their time. Like, obviously, we were doing something even if they weren't made with that intention, like the Red Dawn movie from like the 80s and all these Red Scare movies, because now we'd probably watch that and be like, what are you talking about? Like, what is all this communist scare?
Yeah.
Of course, it's the propaganda term itself feels very political, obviously, like a lot of things. Um,
The only
there
thing,
any-
sorry,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the only thing I think from a Friday the 13th franchise you could possibly take away from it, and this is just barely, is the notion that the mad killers in it could be perceived as ordinary working class folk who are angry and vengeful against the sloppy, spoiled, irresponsible middle class kids who like just come on their property, traipse around, and just carelessly behave and are just like inconsiderate and disrespectful of the people of their environment. That's the one thing I think you might take away from it.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I feel like you could very much make an argument for that.
Yeah.
I do think that the intentional propaganda ones, like there's a couple here on my list, like Stepford Wives, even though it's not considered bad propaganda, but it's talking about how the patriarchy literally perfects women and how they mold women to be what they want them to be, and it's like a literal, like on the screen of what's happening. I think it's a very interesting view of what was being spewed in the 1970s. And you have Poltergeist that has a message. Again, it's not considered bad propaganda. It's like Poltergeist. We're building these perfect American lives on top of dead Native American,
Literally, yeah.
all graveyards in general. Um, and that's literally, you know,
The history of
I've
this
always,
country.
yeah, like I've always understood that, and then you're talking about it out loud right now. You're like, that is literally the definition of America. It's like we put this beautiful fake stuff on top of death, like um, yeah, that movie just went a lot deeper than I guess I ever thought it would be. Just talking about it out loud, but it is true. That's a very good movie, and it's very true. Like we build our fake happiness on top of very dark, like um, sinister things, and that's just literally. I feel like American life, and I feel like that can be. This is getting much deeper than I first pretended it to, but could be reason why we have such a mental health pandemic in America because we have to pretend to be so happy and like so. I don't want to say perfect because we don't, but that's we have to pretend to be all American, and pull ourselves up by the bootstraps when it's all fake. It's
Yeah.
all like built on top of death
But
and
more specifically, to talk about that, it's this notion that we're all supposed to be the American spirit is the go-getter, completely self-sufficient, and the truth is, at the end of the day, while there is internal motivation and there is this, there's self-discipline, of course, but none of us can accomplish what we accomplish without the help of other people. And so this idea that America is all about just the rugged individualism, while complete and viewing any sort of idea of community as anathema and dangerous and getting in the way of your own freedom is actually just I think the biggest part of the problem, because it views it goes back to the concept of othering. Anyone who disagrees with you is dangerous and not to be trusted. So yeah.
Well, another thing that you could take away from Poltergeist is that if you build your future on top of the past but ignore it, then it will just destroy you.
Yeah, that's a really amazing observation. Yes.
Because I mean, aren't we kind of viewing that right now? That's what's happening right now. Basically, we ignore the past.
Yeah.
You don't know the past, and you don't recognize what's happening.
Exactly. Doesn't necessarily mean tear everything that you built down, but it just means acknowledging what the sins of what happened to create the world that you live in now, and try to make amends for them, and there's no way. I don't know how necessarily one does that, but I guess but then again, that's the difference between, I guess, a modernist view and a postmodernist view. So
or it could be like when you see a crack in something, we're not gonna start from scratch by trying to fix it. We steal it from the past of how to fix it, so we just honor that and do it, not be like, oh no, I don't know what's happening, I don't know. This kind of looks like what happened in the past, but I don't care, I didn't pay attention.
yes.
I mean that, or it's kind of like read the instruction manual.
Yes.
Just read it. It's fine. Like
Yeah.
I mean, but we all do that in life. Like I didn't.
We're supposed to.
The direction. I know, but like you're like, I don't know how to put this together. It makes sense, and you're like, I did it wrong.
Yeah.
You gotta tear it all apart and go read the
Right.
instructions and start all over again. Which I know people are like, why are you preaching? And the point of this is just to sway me, but it's true. I think that movie has a lot of messages and a lot of like just even when you talk about it out loud, it's a lot of messages that I think are important.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. And I guess we can move on. I know we're just like powering through these movies, but Poltergeist, a good version of propaganda.
Love it.
And then you have some more good versions of propaganda. Get Out. It's anti-propaganda, reveals underlying systems of control through horror. what a great movie about white liberalism and racial exploitation. So, what about you? What are your views on Get Out?
Well, yes, but it's interesting. Yes, I agree that Get Out is very much. There are a lot of really rich, complex themes in there. There's the idea of white people being covetous of black people's or with their perception of black people's natural physical strength and trying to sap that out from them and away from them, wanting to place their own consciousness in quote unquote black bodies. There's a lot going on in that movie. It's really intense. There's the idea of the nation sucking out the souls and the essence of black people's humanity. But as interesting it is, there's also some very, very troubling stuff going on in there, for me anyway. Number one, I think you could easily make the argument that the movie is opposed to interracial dating. So, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you necessarily agree with that, but
I can see where I could see you could make an argument that movie is like white woman bad.
Yeah. Well, sure, but no, I mean, and that's been expounded on in much discourse about how the tears of white women are frequently used to persecute black men. But that being said, it's also interesting because Jordan Peele is biracial and is married to a white woman. Make of that what you will. But I do think it's really interesting that the movie, in its deconstruction of white heteropatriarchal society, also maybe pushing forward the message that to just stay away from white people altogether, including don't date them. So. And speaking of which, obviously the entire thrust of the movie is undergirding white liberals' hypocrisy, people who claim to want to help black people, but also, quite frankly, benefit from the existing power structure because it allows them not to relinquish any of their own power. The question then becomes: are there any good white people?
Well, I mean,
and is that what the movie is proposing?
Well, is there?
That's what I'm saying. Is the movie proposing that there is no white person who can be trusted? And furthermore, even in the white power structure, black people are also not immune to participating in it. Like, for instance, when Chris's friend goes to the police officers to tell them what happened to Chris, even though he has no proof, it sounds ridiculous, but we, the audience, knows it's true, and he's telling it to a whole bunch of black cops, and they laugh him out of the office. And I think the underlying theme of that scene is to suggest that they too have been absorbed into the system.
Well, yeah, it's easy, and we'll get onto that at the end when we close about why propaganda is so successful and so.
I'm so getting canceled.
It's fine. But this story reminds me of a history story that we don't talk about, like the Tulsa, Oklahoma race massacre. Like, there was a elevator attendee, a 17-year-old girl, and a man, and I want to make sure I actually say his name. Dick Rowland walked into the elevator, and when the doors opened, they both walked out, and she screamed, and they arrested him, and he didn't do anything. But the white people from the neighborhood came. They wanted him, and since they couldn't get him to kill him, they ruined a whole neighborhood. It was called, they called it the Black Wall Street.
Yes.
It was called, and they destroyed a whole city, and people died, and they just not covered it up. They just said, oh, well. I mean, and that's in our history. It was 1921. I mean, that's barely, that's a little over 100 years ago.
Yep.
And we don't really teach this in school. I think it's now in textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's important. I think the movies, it's important. Like, if you believe the tears of, this is a really controversial episode. It's the horror in lying, though. Like, on minorities. Like, we look at it now. You're lying on immigrants and seeing what's happening to them.
Yep. Yeah.
So how easy it is in the privilege lie, and they can ruin people's lives just by a little lie.
Hmm.
Even though that's not a little lie;
And
it's a
it's
big
tying
lie.
into everything that's happening now. ICE running amok. Um, yeah. The the 60 years of progress that we've made post the Civil Rights Act, all seeming to go down the drain right now. So,
And these people probably don't even know this story. It's the whole thing, like Poltergeist talking about. You cannot build paradise on top of death and lies. Like you can't. It's gonna come back to haunt you.
hmm yes, exactly.
Um,
You have to. Yeah.
um,
Yep.
and then we have Candyman, which I think is such a great movie about, and they said that it is like propaganda about gentrification of a neighborhood. If you erase the history of it, then you can't be warned about that. I think that's how I feel.
hmm
Like if you erase all the history of Candyman, then when he comes
Please
back,
stop saying his name.
if you erase that legacy and build on top of it, when that comes back, you don't know how to handle it. Only a select few people that you have marginalized know how to handle it. They're not going to help you. Um, so I think it's just a great warning about if you behave this way and you erase a certain amount of people or push them back to the point where it's not, and you're trying to again take their neighborhood again, then you may disturb something that you don't know how to fight and you may fall victim to it.
Yeah. It's also very much about how history is very much baked into the present, even though what happened to our ancestors may or may not be happening to us right now. It's the legacy of what did happen ultimately shaped the decisions of the descendants moving on and on and on until now. So, and if you don't reckon with that, you just end up repeating the emotional violence. So, I think it's really powerful and it's really effective. Yeah, it's really powerful and it's really effective, and it's just so interesting because the protagonist of Candyman is I would posit a very well intentioned white woman who I think who is trying to do the right thing and trying to help people with her thesis. But and yet the further she digs into it and the further she tries to prove that none of it is real, the more the circumstances come back to bite her in the ass and literally just take her down. And it shows that the history and the generations of degradation and racism and enslavement and violence is very real.
Yeah, she also doesn't listen to her surroundings. Like she doesn't listen to her partner, who's a black woman, who kind of gets her a little bit in danger, and she endangers the lady with
Right. And it's yes, and it's also actually it's interesting that the her like her colleague who is African American does not want to go into the projects, and rightly so, because she does not have the white privilege that is essentially protecting the central character. Like she doesn't see so the white woman who again is a very, very good intentions, and the woman that she meets with the little boy, like it's so funny. Like she's very kind and very compassionate towards her when she's in her apartment and treating her with warmth and sympathy. And then as soon as they're out of there, though, they're out to dinner with their husbands, and they're laughing like it's a game to them, because it is a game to them, because they don't really have to live in those circumstances.
Right. It's a different world to them.
It is.
They can't comprehend. Yeah. I also think it's really interesting that she has no Helen has no qualms about breaking and entering into a place, and then her colleague is like, no, I'm not doing that. Because she has no fear. Like, she's like, I'm just investigating. Like, I'm not going to get in trouble, right? That's like, it shows, like, you're talking about privilege.
Yes. Yeah.
But no, Candyman, great movie. I don't think it's a negative version of propaganda at all. I think I've seen it recently, and I've seen the reboot recently. I think it holds up as well. I think it's to hit on our theme. Not that we have to do that. This one, I think it's very informed, like nostalgia. Like I think it's nostalgic from the times, and I also think it's still very effective now. Again with Poltergeist, and again with Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So I think the 1970s version, in my opinion. But if you want to move on to some non-horror movies, since it's part of the research I did for the podcast, I didn't have to for this other stuff. But
I know.
some examples of not so good, and I think this is probably going to make people mad because this movie is held in high regard in my location. American Sniper is considered not good propaganda. It's kind of considered like not very nuanced. I should say it's not nuanced.
Well, according to the chat GPT search that you put in, a lot of people really like that movie. What I will say is, I think the reason why I would consider it propaganda is because it's a very, very one-sided depiction of the Iraq War and the War on Terror, but specifically the main character, Chris Kyle, who was a real person who allegedly killed more people as a sniper than anyone in that conflict. I could be incorrect about that, but he took out a lot of people. He killed a lot of people in the Iraq War. He is depicted in the film as this kind of like stoic, honorable guy who just views being a sniper as his duty, serving his country, and seems to be morally weighed down by the deaths of some of the people that he causes, especially if they do not appear to be active combatants. When watching that, in order to depict this kind of rah-rah, jingoistic, America good, Middle East bad narrative. So, yeah, it was a crock of shit.
I actually I didn't think I would like the film. I don't necessarily know if I liked the film, but I did pay attention to the film. I don't know if it's because I was studying it. I don't know. But what made me extremely sad about the movie is that the beginning did feel very like recruiting. Like you're recruiting people to join, the military. Which I have to be clear. I guess if people watching this, I have nothing but respect for people who are in the military. I have nothing. I can say I have nothing but high regards for people who are in the military and go and serve the country and sacrifice part of their mental health and their life to protect us. But I was reading an article about the movie, and the movie does touch on it. I don't think it doesn't, but I think sometimes we send people in the military, or the way we promote it, that are not mentally prepared for that kind, and we don't really focus on that until after. So it leaves a lot of broken people. And the movie, at the beginning at least, really glamorizes this kind of training, this kind of behavior. Also, something that really disturbed me about the movie is that there was no, except for one scene that's horrific, no one seemed to care that they're busting into homes of a country that we're invading, and we treat them like they're the enemy when they're in their home. Now, if that was changed, or if people were invading us and someone busted into our home, and we made that movie before, we would be on our side, right? Like if somebody busted in our house as a soldier and we were civilians, we would not want to be, as Americans, treated that way, the way that they treat the children and the people. Literally, they got that man and his family murdered, and they drowned into a child's head. And I know that he felt bad because he hears the drill. But the way that they treat them while they're barging into their homes, which I know people in the military or whatever are going to defend this, it doesn't feel right, especially since we know why we went over to Iraq now. So, I think the movie could have been far more nuanced in those versions about how horrific it is to bust into people's homes and treat them that way. This is where I think this is what I'm talking about is controversial. I know that we have to protect our other troops. I know, there's a scene with a kid, and he doesn't, and I think it's actually a well done scene. where the kid, I don't know if it was his dad, is killed, and the kid has this big like gun or whatever it is, and the kid goes to use it and he doesn't. Um, there's no discussion about like what are those people supposed to do because they're under attack, right? Like if you're going to show this stuff, I'm not saying the movie didn't have to show any of that to be about that, right? Because the movie chose to be about him. We are watching all these different scenes, which I think if you are going to show something true about that time, you have a responsibility to understand that these people, we would do the same. Does that, you know what I mean? Like, and I know that they showed the parallels of there's another sniper, right? Like, there's another sniper that's just like him in the movie. I promise I'm getting to a point. I just think that with the way the movie's framed, we don't think about the other. Like, it's a movie that's not about being fear of the other, but it's just about we're great and everybody else sucks. And
Yeah.
um, it could have been about the mental health. It kind of waited till the end.
Yeah.
I also don't like the way it portrays women in the movie. The girl in the beginning, that she's just like they talk about her reputation and all that stuff, and she tries to say it's because I need attention, but we just kind of toss her away, and then he decides that he's in love with the Miller character, but she's basically like there's not enough attention to realize that she is a single mom, and then he's dead. I guess they try to make it heavy, and I think I'm paying attention to it, so I feel the heavy. But I, I don't think it was a good job. I think it really is a great. I didn't say great. It does portray a certain character to be a hero when necessarily like no one's really a hero in this situation. It's just a really detrimental situation for everybody.
Yeah. I agree.
Um, but I think the movie had a really great chance at being something deeper. You know what I mean? Than a hero story, it could have been a real. It could have had a different. If it had a different point of view of a warning of like doing this kind of stuff, like
Yeah.
it's just not. It doesn't benefit anybody.
It does. It really does.
But to go into another movie that I watched, that's an example. Um, it's an example of you know good or like effective propaganda that's like has nuance. It's the movie Traffic, which I don't know how I missed seeing Traffic as a kid because it has everything that I would want to watch. It has that indie feel, even though it's not really an indie movie, and it has a great cast and a very famous subject matter from my youth was like the war on drugs. I mean, do they still have Dare in school? Because I mean, I had to graduate Dare.
I go. Yeah.
Uh, and
With
we had
the doggy detective in the trench coat.
Yeah, and we had a police officer come talk to us about drugs like every month or so, and then we finally graduated from there, and then it was just there was even like a theme song. It was like Dare to keep a kid off drugs.
Yeah.
Like, it's, so this movie, I mean, I I think it's one of the saddest movies I've ever watched. I know I told you that when we were talking. I think it's sad. I think that especially the Erica Christensen, because I know, I mean, I was young when the movie came out, and the story of like just people who were addicts, and um, and the movie does treat them how I feel like people around here treat them. Like, I mean, I know we're not in Mexico. When he was in Mexico meeting with those officials, her dad, who's a judge that's been tasked, about drugs at the border in the movie and stuff. And the guy just says, "Well, addicts." I've heard this said in my local area before. He goes, "What are you doing about recovery and stuff?" And he goes, "What do you mean they take like addicts take care of themselves? They like overdose and die basically." And I'm like, I said, "Ooh, that's really dark stuff." Which I guess that could be considered, but I find that it is nuanced because you could tell it's two different views of people who view addicts that way, and then obviously he doesn't view addicts that way, and he wants to get help. And I know it's his daughter, which makes it a little different. But I think it raises a good conversation about how some people don't want to help because addicts won't go away. It's not a disease that you can like drown out, like or have a vaccine for. It's about mental health. Like you have to
Yes.
fix that first. It's not. If all the drugs in the world went away, you still have food, you still have other stuff, you still have legal drugs. Like you have That's just why I think it's a great subject matter. Like, and you have the way that it's not even people who take drugs and like higher up people in the government who allow things to happen, or people who are the cartel, like killing people because they want to be the cartel. And I think it's just a very interesting movie that shows how drugs, like how the drug market or the drug, like our culture touches every single person, even if you think it doesn't. I think it was a good movie and a very, very important message.
I agree. I think it's an excellent movie. I think it's a movie that really is very ambitious and complex and has a really large scope and covers a wide variety of characters in the way that uh, the drug war is fought on all sides or enabled on others, and you get to see various people from, like, for instance, Erica Christensen, who's the daughter of a U.S. senator played by Michael Douglas, who's appointed to be the new drug czar, only to find out that, you know, the war on drugs that he thinks he's fighting for the country is actually happening in his own home. And then you have, you know, a Mexican border cop played by the amazing Benicio del Toro, who is trying to do the right thing, but is so neck deep in his country's corruption and how the war on drugs affects his country and America economically, that the most he feels like he can do is just like a small victory here and there, and like that's what you hold on to. And then you have Catherine Zeta-Jones, who plays the unknowing wife of who turns out to be a big drug kingpin, and has no idea that that's how her husband made all his money, and is furious with him at first, but then when rival drug cartels come after her children, she realizes that she'll do anything to protect them, including protecting her husband's drug empire. So it's really, it's just an amazing kaleidoscopic kind of film where you get like a bird's eye view of the entire subject, and it's an ensemble piece. And okay, funny story aside, the first time I saw it, I went with a bunch of my friends in college, and they all smoked a joint before we went to the theater. So they were all laughing at the scenes where kids were overdosing, and what was really sad on screen turned out to be really, really funny. I couldn't stop laughing at them and with them because it was so hysterical. But the movie itself is really, really serious and really enjoyable without feeling like you're being lectured to. And it really does cover a very, very serious topic about the problem of not only drugs and drug addiction and why it's a mental health crisis more than a character flaw crisis, but also how both countries profit from keeping the war on drugs going. And so how do you fight something whose very profitability has become baked into our system?
Well, I mean, yeah, like, I mean, legal drug dealing is like everywhere. I mean, doctors are paid to, you know, promote certain medications and all kind of stuff. I mean, I know that's now, it's not really what the movie's about, but it's about our everyday life. Like, right, like a medicine will fix anything, right? Instead of us doing normal stuff to make sure we'll just take a pill. Like, I mean, I'm just like the Erica Christensen, the character, I don't think it really focused that much on it, but it was stuff you could figure out. Like, it didn't tell you, it showed you how stressed, like she did everything right. Like, right when they interview her, that she has straight A's and she's this and she's that, and she doesn't give a shit about any of it when she's talking to her friends. So yeah, you can't be. And what I've learned being older, you cannot be a high performer your whole life, right? You can't. Like, there's not enough time. There's not. They expect more, no matter how high you excel. So this is why people do drugs, to keep up with what's expected of them, because we can't, because we don't live in a society where your best is enough. If you're doing your best now, we expect you to do higher, right? Like, you have to be better. You have to be the best. Okay, you did that. Do better. You did that. That's why you don't. I think that's why people in the art entertainment, like, they do some great things, and everybody expects even greater and greater. But you can only be creative for so long before it's drained. And I feel that now in my career. Like I can't be great all the time. Like you just can't. And they always want more. So I'm not saying I do, but I feel the breaking point where you're like, can I have, like I joke all the time, can I have something to make me focus? Can I have something to give me more energy? Because I
Yeah.
have nothing else, but yet the demand for more is there. And I just really, really identified, and I hate, like, I don't think she was villainized at all with the Eric Christensen character.
No.
Um,
Though
I
I
also
would
want
suggest that you haven't really lived until you're watching it with somebody who's high and calling her a crack hoe.
to,
But
no, I really was, I wanted to cry. I was like, can she, I hope she, like, I really was very, very tuned in to the Catherine Zeta-Jones and Erica Christensen
yeah,
storyline. Like, I was very upset by some of the imagery seeing, and I was like, I do like that the movie went there. She didn't just go to rehab and was okay, like we see in some things. It failed, and she really inspired. Like I know we see movies in rock bottom, but we really saw some rock bottom in this movie from a couple of characters, right? Um, so I just think it was just a great movie. I think it was great.
yeah,
I think it really made me think about some things that I already think. Like a lot of these movies I'm talking about, like Poltergeist and Traffic. Even American Sniper, I do think that these movies serve a point of making me think deeper. I don't think the general public always does that, but I do understand propaganda's purpose. Like it's dangerous with the uneducated, unnuanced general public that will watch some of these movies and have a different reaction and make decisions based on it. Um, but that's why we're humans. Like, I mean, this is why we discuss things. That's why we have this show. That's why movies are made, like to make discussions. Like, you can't force people to have this interaction. Um, I will say I didn't get to watching these movies, but I know you've seen them. And I did more than Chat GPT.
I
GPT was
know,
cheating
I know
before.
you did.
But the two movies that were on every single list I looked at was Top Gun and Top Gun 2 Maverick.
Yeah,
That they were considered extreme military propaganda,
yeah, they're essentially recruitment advertisements.
which I think is dangerous if you, like we talked about with American Sniper, if you just, and I don't know, I haven't seen these movies, but from I didn't get a chance to watch them, which I don't really want to watch them, but that if you
They're so homoerotic, by the way. It's so funny.
homoerotic, but like men love that. I think if you just depict people having fun in the military, then they work hard, they sweat, they get it done, the mission's done. If you simplify it like that, you really are brainwashing people
Yeah,
because they're huge movies, and I mean, I think that that's something that we should really understand. Like we should watch a variety and read and watch a variety of things about people. Because I think if the American Sniper movie was done a little bit more about mental health and about, I think that would be a great movie for. Because I know people took away from it that he was a hero. That's all I hear. He was a great sniper and he was a hero. People didn't take, and the movie does try. I'm not saying it didn't try. I think people should have taken other things from that movie,
yes.
which I don't think Top Gun does it at all. From my
No,
reading the synopsis and all that.
no. Top Gun. The Top Gun movies are literally all just about America winning and America being awesome, and um, hot, sweaty, shirtless guys playing volleyball on the beach.
So it's kind of erotic.
But it's so
So,
yeah. But they're so straight and alpha. Sure. Okay.
well, even more erotic. Um, so I will say this to interrupt. I just got a message from my friend that Donald Trump has the National Security Council assembling in the Situation Room right now.
Okay. So this may be the last episode of the show. I hope you.
I don't know. I guess that means World War III. I don't know.
I hope you. Well, if these are time capsules transmitted to outer space in the future, I hope you all enjoy. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope everybody who watched this enjoyed this. I pray that we'll get to record another episode. I'm sure we will. We could even continue this discussion because there are movies on the list that we didn't get to.
Yeah. I didn't get to do as much research as I wanted to because, again, like I said, a lot of these movies, besides the horror ones, are not. Maybe that's why I don't have a view on it. Like they're not my movies. Like I really wanted to finish Zero Dark 30, but I fell asleep last night, which I really like the cast of that movie. It's not considered actually when I as bad propaganda, but it's considered that again that it doesn't totally glorify torture, but it makes it seem like torture is a successful way of like winning.
Right.
And
Yes, exactly. I mean, yeah, yeah. There's. I was gonna just essentially reiterate that. Yes. So.
which is hard to watch too. That may be one reason. Like I don't get off on. Like I like the movie Saw, but I find it's like kind of a mystery and
I
stuff. But I do not like
no. That's
Hostel.
see. That's the thing. That movie is torture porn to me. I mean, and I think a lot of people accuse it of that. And that is the difference. Zero Dark 30 is not torture porn. It There are scenes of torture, very close to borderline torture in that movie, and the movie does not make them look pleasant. It makes them look very unpleasant and actually extremely heart wrenching, actually, and it does not. It does not it does not get you cheering for the people doing the tour. It does not get you cheering for the Americans who are torturing their Middle Eastern detainees. It doesn't get you going like, yeah, go kill, like, go make that terrorist suffer until he squirms, until he squeals. It doesn't do that. It does not do that. But at the same time, it does not come out and oppose the practice either, because no, there's no statement in the film or from any of the characters saying what we're doing is bad. So yeah, it really, as you pointed out, it really just acknowledges that torture happened, but by not openly condemning it, it kind of is like just a tacit acceptance of it as a way of getting the information that was necessary to track down and kill Bin Laden. I do think I mean, it's certainly a more artful film than American Sniper is. I thought that the final image was moving and also haunting. But if you haven't seen the end of it, I'm not going to tell you what that is. So
No, I may finish it tonight. I don't, or depending
Okay.
if it happens. But I can tell that the movie is slightly more nuanced than American Sniper. You can just tell
It
that
is.
there's
It is.
care in the movie. I do think it's something in our culture. I don't know. I think when we talked about it before, I think you kind of disagree with me. I don't know. I think there's something ingrained in our culture, especially, I don't know if it's from my generation, like, where we tend to lean towards violence as something that's, like, we want to fight something, I guess I should say. Not that we want to have violence, so, like, even though we do, like, like that cowboy mentality, which they mentioned in American Sniper, like, we want to ride off and go, win a war instead of, like, we don't really, in my opinion, I'm from a different part of the country. There's not a lot of meeting of the minds, or that saying where I'm from is made fun of. But like it's like weak people, the meeting of the minds, they feel like they never come up and fix anything. Which we can kind of close up the thing why propaganda is so successful, and especially like not good propaganda or like false propaganda. Because it simplifies things, right? Like there's a us and there's this them. There's us. There's an easy answer to everything.
and that's comforting.
Like, yeah, it is very comforting because I'm like, because there's not really, actually, from my experience, I'm going to back away on that. For a while, I thought there was good guys and bad guys, and then for a while, I thought everything, honestly, we're the bad guys in a lot of stories, right? As America, as people, like in life, I'm a bad guy to somebody, right? I'm the villain in somebody's story. So if you watch my life through my point of view, I'm going to always be the antagonist, right? Or not whatever.
The protagonist?
Protagonist, because I'm right. I'm the main character of my life.
Yes.
So of course, American movies, generally, when they're made for the American people, we are the good guys. but that's not true in real life, right? Like there's always a bad guy because we're always infringing on somebody, not just
Yeah, it
us,
depends on who you right. It depends on who you ask.
Um, so for us to understand that as people, that's how you should really take in a lot of your information, right? Like you should be nuanced. I know I keep saying that word, but or um, to really be understanding of how things work, you have to understand that we there's there is not always a good guy and a bad guy. It's just a situation. Now there are people who do really bad things that are so selfish that it doesn't benefit anybody but them. That I guess you could label a true bad guy. But I feel like we should always aim to understand. Like if it seems too simple, then maybe it is, and maybe we should do more research. Um, I like that we've renamed our channel Informed Nostalgia because there's a lot of times we have discussions on the other shows that we're a part of about I don't know why I like this movie because I don't like anything about it, but it reminds me of the time that I like, and I think you have to be honest with yourself. I don't think it's a good movie, but it comforts me.
What
So I think
movie?
that's what like propaganda, huh?
Which movie?
A lot of them.
Okay.
Soul Survivors is a terrible movie. And I've been told it's a terrible movie. And I rewatched it again last year. And I was like, oh, when I watch it to critique it, it is a terrible movie. But I would still watch it. Like, Halloween Resurrection is a terrible movie. But I will watch it over a lot of good movies because I remember being a child during the time. And it is like a time capsule of a movie um, that I enjoy. But if I was to watch it now and never had seen it as a child, I would probably not like it. Like, like I would be like, well, this is stupid. Jason X, but Jason X has fun to be had, I think, at any time. But it's another
You
movie.
know, I think you're right about Americans being violent people. I'm not going to say that we all love like horror movies and stuff like that, but people like us, we watch uh, pretend fake murders and it like puts us to sleep. Like we relax watching people pretend to get killed,
Right, and I think,
and the rest, most of the world is like, huh?
well, and I think that it has a lot to do with that we're really polarized here in America. Like, I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, not necessarily for all of it, but I like watching her succeed, even though she is I think you can kind of have your cake and eat it too with Buffy because she's beautiful. She would be popular if she didn't have this secret, and it got in the way. So it's like she can be all American, but she's not because she has a secret. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff going on. Like I know everything goes back to Buffy for me or in Scream, but you have the violence, but it doesn't. Buffy does go there and be like, not everybody's a bad guy, even though she's meant to kill vampires. Not every vampire is a bad guy. Like I think it's just, I know that's a simplistic way of putting it, but they do analyze every situation in that show, and I think that's one reason why I am the way I am. To simplify it, is that we're in the '90s and stuff like that. We had a lot of accidentally nuanced things that got popular. I think Scream and Buffy and the stuff that we love made you think like about people behave because the way things happen to them. People behave because of secrets. People behave. There's everybody has a reason, and I don't think that that was intentional. Growing up with a lot of these things, I think it just was a sign of the times, and sometimes we lose it. We get too comfortable, and sometimes other people's. I'm kind of weaving or whatever. What is that Donald Trump says he's doing the weave? Or I don't. I think when you get comfortable and you don't have a point of view anymore, then other people's point of view can infiltrate and then
Absolutely, absolutely. What that saying? If you don't stand for what you believe in, you'll fall for anything.
yeah, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
Um,
So if
so
you don't have a point of view, others will
yeah,
fill it instead.
yeah, you'll accidentally find yourself in this, which
Yes.
I think is one reason why not always that the other will always see everything. Like I grew up as a not masculine or like an effeminate, overweight, gay a person in where none of that is acceptable where I live, right? Like So I had to always watch myself, analyze myself, and change myself. So when you have to act that way, you really know who you are because you're like, well, I can't do this because I know this is going to happen, and I know I'm going to behave like this, and I need to do this. So if you overly, my point is that I am very self-aware because I think of my surroundings and stuff, and I was able to have good propaganda around me, like Buffy and Scream and all that stuff. So I was lucky, um, and I was able to develop my own point of view because what I was consuming challenged me. And that I wasn't allowed to just exist, and it's like a pressure cooker, I guess. What I'm saying, I wasn't allowed just to exist in the world. I had to really watch myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand. Yeah, I hear you. Um, I did not have. Well, I was not surrounded by the same overwhelmingly homophobic environment that you were growing up. Um, but it did come occasionally from places that were close to me. So that did not really make me feel comfortable being my full self until I got to college. And then and I started to feel more open about it. But then, like a few weeks after I got to college, the LGBTQ plus office was vandalized. So, and it's just so funny because my whole life I've pretty much been in supposedly liberal, inclusive environments. So it just goes to show that that kind of reactionary viewpoint can really rear its ugly head anywhere. So, uh, yeah, I understand that, and our experiences were not the same, but I understand that need to be constantly aware of your surroundings, because of, well, being othered by society from a very young age.
Well, and I think it makes you think out. Like that doesn't feel right. Like right when you watch these like super propaganda movies that are not true, like that doesn't seem right because this is not my truth. Like right. So if you're not, if you're, what is it? What is that episode of Buffy? I'm jacked in. Like
Oh my God,
if you're not fully jacked into like everything, then you're like, this isn't right. Like this is not my life. So
the
I don't believe.
'90s really were the best. It just we peaked.
um, I just think that I'm thankful. I'm not thankful for the heartache that I sometimes am. I don't know, because if I didn't have it, if I didn't have the perfect storm of my life, then I would be like everybody else here. And that's not a dig at the people who are gonna watch this. I I like that I'm aware of a lot of things. I like that I'm the other because I don't be like everybody else. Like I like that I went to the protest weekend. I like that I ignorance is bliss, but I think I would be very unhappy with myself if I broke those in a lot of
Yeah.
because eventually you come out of that ignorance.
Hmm.
If you don't, then I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too. Because there's a
But I think
whole amazing world out there.
it is.
Um,
That's what I tell a lot of people. It's like it does get better if you let it. Um, Now there's outside forces, obviously family that are keep you down and stuff like that, and like things like money. But experiencing the world in a safe way, in a careful way, is one of the best things I ever did. It's like when I moved out, and that's just um, not that my parents were terrible, just like make your own decisions and to be a nurse and see the world, even though it was hard and sometimes it's very hard, is one of the best things I ever did.
Mwah!
Thank you everybody for listening. I hope let us know in the comments what's your favorite movie that you consider propaganda or a movie that you didn't know had propaganda in it. And I think every movie basically has propaganda in it. So this isn't and this is like a just to say I do support the military. I think that they're very fantastic people, and that was just a movie's point of view that I didn't agree with. And I also don't think a movie is bad because it's propaganda. I think it's great for us to think about a movie like, well, this has a narrative that it's pushing, and it's not necessarily true. It's just the people who made it narration, we should be careful because not obviously never we should take any movie, even if it's based on someone's life, as fact, right? We should always look up.
I will say that I do not demonize or vilify or automatically think poorly of anyone who chooses to join the American military, because they could have done so for a variety of reasons that I don't know about, because I don't know their lived experience. I don't know what struggles they've had. So I don't think that anyone who's automatically enlisted should be looked as part of the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about, and that we are still running and is still causing countless deaths as a result of endless wars and violence. So, yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the way the military is run, but I do understand that the military, in some form or capacity, is necessary, and I appreciate the people who are brave enough to risk their lives to protect for the idea of it, and for the idea of defending the people who live in this country.
Right, but they really do for a portion of their life.
Because they do, yeah, they do,
their life.
And they give up so much, and many of them do not receive the proper respect and care and treatment they deserve when they come home, if they come home. So, yeah.
All right, guys, thank you, and hopefully we're still here for another week, and they don't have each other.
Assuming that we haven't blown up or that I've been canceled.
No. All right. Bye, guys.
Good night.